Well, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1.
Here we go, off the rails, but you know it's time to raise our sails. It's freedom like you never knew. Don't need bags or a pass, say the word, I'll be there.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the ugvm podcast. I'm your host, Andy Kavanagh, but you can call me deKay, and with me today are Luffer.
Good evening, or good day, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to this.
Kendrick.
Ohio was I mashed up.
Oh, I see. And Toby Newman.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. I've got some very important news to report. 3 pieces of important news, and they are 1, Stardew Valley is better than Doom. 2, Elite Dangerous is better than No Man's Sky. And most importantly, 3, chips are better than Daddy. And they are all verifiable facts, just so you know.
These are from the polls, I think, aren't they?
Absolutely. Very important polls they were. Anyway, since our last episode, you'll be pleased to know that the ZX Vega Plus still hasn't come out. No surprises there. Retro Computers Limited have cited more delays. You may remember me saying that every time anybody complains about it, they come out with more delays. They've done that. Lee Fogarty, who is the official and or unofficial spokesperson, depending on who you speak to, including him, has gone full turncoat now, and there's been a load of fallout from that. He's started releasing some paperwork that he's had access to. So that's been quite interesting. Won't go too much into that because it's a bit of a retread of the last episode, but there's plenty out there to read. One thing being that there is now there's a ban on mentioning the ZX Vega completely on the World of Spectrum forums, which is something. Anybody mentions that, it all gets deleted. So an alternative forum's being set up at spectrumcomputing.co.uk.
Yeah, that's always a bad way to run a community, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Censorship, yeah. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Well, to be clear, is World of Spectrum a general interest Spectrum site, or was it specifically set up for the purpose of discussing the ZX Vega?
Well, no. It's actually one of the older websites that's still going. It was originally set up by a community of Spectrum users to be a repository for everything to do with the Spectrum. So there's a load of games on there, like tape archives, there's magazine scans, there's cheats for games, there's adverts, there's all kinds of stuff on there for Spectrum and ZX81 computers and other related information for things to do with that, and it's huge.
Speaking as a web forum moderator, sure. It is not a good look to just completely ban a single topic like that, especially if there's active discussion and active speculation
Absolutely.
About a product. On the other hand, I can see how everything might have been said already, and there's nothing new to talk about until there's actual news and fewer denials.
Well, there is that, but the problem is that this Lee Fogarty is also the maintainer of the World of Spectrum site and forum,
so he's affiliated.
Exactly, yeah. So I can understand somebody wanting to stamp down a bit if it's all getting a bit out of hand, but he's stamping down because a lot of it's directed at him. So anyway, so that's that. It's not out yet. Apparently, it's still coming out. It probably isn't, but that's that.
I believe I read on that ZX Vega thing that there not some people looking to sue the solicitors because of some alleged misappropriated funds or something along those lines.
Yeah, there is. I think there's looking to be the kind of UK or European equivalent of some class action lawsuit, possibly. I'm not sure how that'll work, but yeah, there's a group of people got together for a number of purposes I think they've found an angle that they could possibly take them down. I'm not really sure how that's going to pan out or exactly what that involves, but obviously with over 4,000 interested parties, there's bound to be at least a few who might want to take this further. Something that has come out is the Xbox One X. Did we all buy one?
No.
I only got my Xbox One less than a year ago. I got it last Christmas, so it's a bit too soon to be upgrading it, but that's the way of mid-cycle refreshers on consoles, really. I mean, I feel like they're not really necessary. It feels a bit soon for a new console to me.
I can see the point if you have. I mean, I've got a 4K TV, so if I was going to buy an Xbox now, it would make sense to make it the Xbox One X.
Yeah,
I suppose.
But I mean,
I think there's a place for having forgive me for having a more cynical view on that. My view is that I have 3 Windows PCs in my house, and anything that's an Xbox One exclusive will also be released on PC, very likely if it's first party. So I still don't see that there's a compelling reason to get one.
And that's why I don't have an Xbox at the moment.
Yeah.
But I can still see that there is a place in the market for that now, that 4K is becoming more of a thing in general people's homes.
Yeah. I haven't even got HD TV yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like fixing resolution is kind of the wrong thing to be fixing. I mean, there's things that you could work on in games that would give you more of a leap in fidelity or fun than just pixel count, really. Better animation or better textures or better frame rates to me would all mean more than higher resolution.
But I can't wait for development houses to start using the QA hours as a selling point. We tested our games 3 times longer than the competition.
Yeah. Guaranteed only 33% of the bugs.
Still includes the first day patch, though.
Have you seen the size of some of the Xbox One X games? They're like 100 gig.
It's the well, I don't have Xbox games, but on Steam particularly, you download the game that's like 50 gig, and then on day one you've got a 48 gig patch, and you just think, wow, how can that be? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh well.
If only there was some physical medium on which all of this data could be distributed so that the network would not be overloaded.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't know whether it'll start moving that way with the Xbox One X, but with the Switch it already has, that even the physical medium requires multiple gigs of space on your device. So, for example, Doom, which has come out now for the Switch, it requires something like 8 gig if you want to play multiplayer.
Well, so it's like a segmented install, so you can choose to add the multiplayer or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's the downside of using cartridges, I suppose, but a bit of a pain.
But then Mario Galaxy is only about 3 or 4 gigabytes, isn't it? Which is pretty titchy by today's standards.
Yeah.
I wonder why Nintendo did not go with the Sony PlayStation Vita model and have writable RAM reserved on the Switch cartridge for the purpose of installing those updates. Because that's how the Vita does it. And it's brilliant that most of the game updates can actually go on the card itself rather than having to be installed on the writable memory.
Well, I think part of it is probably cost, but also it's not just for the updates. It's literally in order to play the game in the first place. It's half the game is missing. It's not just an update to fix bits in the game. It's literally half the game isn't on the cartridge. So
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
No, I mean, it's disappointing. I mean, luckily it's not. It's mostly not Nintendo themselves, and it seems to be so far things like Doom and Skyrim and that NBA game. So ports from other platforms, but
that makes sense.
It's not a good direction to go in, really. I don't think, especially when you consider there's only 32 gig on board anyway. And in actual fact, there's probably only about 28 by the time you've taken out the whatever's reserved for the operating system and saves and stuff. So it is a bit of a premium. But then on the other side, most of the games are tiny. So since we're mentioning the Switch, we've somehow moved on to Kendrick. You wanted to say something about that, I believe.
Yes. It was recently reported in a number of gaming sites that Nintendo is seeking to manufacture up to 30 million Switch consoles in fiscal 2018. That would be the financial year starting in April of 2018 and ending in March of 2019. And the reason that this is remarkable in some people's minds is because that is far and away the largest number of consoles that would be sold, assuming they sell them all, more than any previous iteration of the most popular game system. Just to compare with numbers cribbed from Ars Technica, the Wii, in its second year of sales, sold 26 million, as did the original Nintendo DS handheld. In its best year, not its second year, but its third year, the PlayStation 2 only sold 22.5 million. And even now, the PlayStation 4, which is the runaway success of the current generation, only sold just over 18 million in its second year. The generally accepted wisdom, the smart money says that Nintendo is banking on the Switch being perceived as a handheld successor to the 3DS. And so they want to look at those numbers in terms of projecting their future sales and their future growth. I thought of something in the shower a few mornings ago that is either
this is a clean thing.
Yes, this is a very clean thing. it occurred to me to research Apple iPad sales year over year. And those stats are rather misleading and probably inaccurate. But if you average it all out over the last 8 years, every year Apple has sold just under 40 million iPads across all the generations and across each iteration. So I wonder if it is that Nintendo is comparing themselves not to other game systems, but to the most popular handheld tablet device of all time.
I think that was part of their goal originally, to not try and compete necessarily with traditional gaming platforms, but try and take back some of what Apple have taken with tablets and phones.
Also, presumably they can reserve the right to adjust this number halfway through the year. I mean, they're leading up to Christmas, so they want to paint a rosy picture while everyone's thinking, shall I buy a Switch for Christmas? Yeah. So they're going to say, oh yeah, next year we're going to build millions and millions of them. But they don't have to build that many. When it gets to April, they can just slow it down a bit, right? Depending on how it's going.
On the plus side, if you're looking to buy a Switch and they've made 30 million of them and they're not selling, you could be getting some very good deals next year when they slash the prices to get rid of the excess stock.
Except they don't seem to do that very much anymore. I've been looking around for a cheap remaindered Wii U just for the purpose of having one, and I can't find one anywhere. Anyone who has them in stock still has them at full price, and no one seems to be discounting them, probably because they can't afford to. The margin on the hardware is as thin as it ever was.
Yeah.
So not being a Switch owner, I do want to ask the group, does the Switch currently have non-game software that would support its use as a tablet? I'm led to understand that there's at least one video streaming service available for it now. Hulu, possibly?
No, I think the only one available is Nico Nico. I think that's it. I know that Netflix have something ready to go, but they just need an okay from Nintendo. That's what they seem to have implied in an interview fairly recently anyway. But apart from that, in terms of non-gaming software, there's virtually nothing.
Whenever I tried watching Netflix on my Wii U, it was maddening because you would have it on the TV and also on the hand controller, so you'd have like two versions of the screen in front of you.
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous decision they made with the original, with the Wii U, with that second screen being on all the time.
Yeah. It was useful for some things, but there was absolutely no reason to have it on for games where it's literally just mirrored on the TV.
Well, if we see that there are additional non-gaming apps coming out for the Switch, then we'll know that my ridiculous theory is correct, and that Nintendo intends for you not just to build Mario levels, but also to receive notifications about your delayed aeroplane on your Switch. But,
would people really use a Switch in place of a tablet? I mean, it's not really built as a tablet, is it? I mean,
it's not always on.
It's literally a tablet, though, the Switch. So,
is it always on like a tablet would be?
It can be, yes. Mine hasn't been turned off for months.
Yeah. Okay. So you could use it to receive your email notifications and all that business. And
yeah, I don't think I would, but.
I suppose the barrier there would be that Nintendo would not be willing to open up an API so that other people could build, leisure applications or worse still, business applications to push notifications to the Switch.
My theory behind them not doing that yet is piracy. If you look back at the Wii U and at the Wii and at the 3DS, all of these applications have been a way-in for piracy. The web browsers have been a way-in. The YouTube apps have been a way-in. And so I think, at least until they've got a decent user base out there, I don't think they want to drag anything else in there just in case.
Well, far be it from us to read the tea leaves and figure out Nintendo's actual ambitions.
Yeah.
But you're probably right. Nintendo fears piracy just as much as they fear earthquakes.
Yeah, there is that. Okay, so other things that's happened in the last, what have we been, 3 weeks, 4 weeks since the last episode? We've had another batch of PS Plus games come out and another batch of Games with Gold games comes out. So we'll just quickly run through those. So on PS Plus in November, we got Worms Battlegrounds for the PS4. Any thoughts on? No?
Well, Worms is a great game. I've not played many of the more recent versions, but certainly the original ones were fantastic.
Yeah, it's. I haven't played it in multiplayer yet. I've played through the campaign mode, which is reasonably good, I suppose. It's all right. Then there's Bound, which is on the PS4. It's a PSVR title as well. Anyone
a
played it?
virtual reality title called Bound.
Yeah.
Are the letters S and M are not associated with this game? Is that correct?
No. Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, another PSVR title.
Don't know any of these games.
Nope, don't know what that is. We've had-
Until Dawn was the horror movie simulator, was it not?
that rings a bell, but that's not my sort of game, so probably wouldn't have looked any further than that. There's That's You Again, which has been on there for the last 3 or 4 months now. R-Type Dimensions on the PS3, which I did actually play and completed within 15 minutes. It was all right.
Yeah, you're joking. I own that for the PS3 on disc, and I couldn't finish it. I got stuck on it. But maybe you're playing on a different difficulty to me.
Of course, I'm playing on Infinite Lives mode. So yeah. Oh, I'm not mad.
So I played it on what would have been normal, I guess, and I got stuck. There was a robotic boss that you had to work your way around clockwise. It was like a big battleship thing, and that's where I got up to. Yeah. Is that near the end?
Impossible to hit. Yeah, near impossible to hit, because you seem to have to be able to shoot behind you all the time, which unless you've got certain power-ups, you can't.
Yeah, I enjoyed the game until I got stuck on it. I remember thinking it was good. It was, it was sort of like Ikaruga, sort of taking classic side-scroller or vertical shmup play and giving it 3D depth and nice graphics. It was good.
Well,
give me the stupid foreigner question. What's the unit of currency that goes into an arcade game in the UK?
10 Ps. Well, pounds now, 10 Ps.
Nowadays it's pounds.
Okay, because I was going to say quarter, but that obviously doesn't apply. So, Toby, what you were doing was you were playing on a 10p piece, whereas deKay was playing with the whole roll.
Yeah, the bag of cash.
The number of lives I went through, I probably would have spent £30. So, one thing I did like about it was, for no reason whatsoever, I just kept flicking between the old style graphics and the new style graphics, and it kind of fades the old style and new style music at the same time, which was quite fun. Literally nothing, no benefit at all to the game, but I quite like flicking between the two. Anyway, so there's that. There's Ragdoll Kung Fu Fist of Plastic for the PS3. Literally no idea what that is.
Well, I've played the prequel, which is Ragdoll Kung Fu, which was it was like the second game ever on Steam, I think. It was maybe not the second, but it was a very early Steam game. I think maybe it was
that's when Steam was on the Commodore 64, right? Yeah. Yeah,
it was like the first indie game on Steam or something like that. I remember it was a long way back. It was kind of a fun game. It's like Ragdoll. It was a kung fu where it was like a fighting game where to punch people you had to use the mouse and grab your fists and drag them to the enemy like that.
Gotcha. Right.
I don't know what the new one's like because obviously you couldn't do that with a PS3 controller. But
no,
it was fun.
I can kind of imagine having a analog stick for each hand might be.
It's probably something along those lines.
Guessing though, no idea. And then there's Dungeon Punks for the PS Vita and PS4. Don't know what that is. And Broken Sword 5, Serpent's Curse. It says episodes 1 and 2, so I'm guessing there are only 2 episodes. But that's on the PS Vita, so I haven't played that yet, but that interests me because I do like the Broken Sword games.
Likewise, Broken Sword is a fantastic series, isn't it? It's proper old school point and click adventuring.
Yeah. Apart from Broken Sword 3 or 4, whichever one had all the Sokoban puzzles, like all the sliding crates and stuff around. That was a bit silly, but the story was good. The puzzles were good, apart from that. But.
I suspect that's on Vita and not PS4 because it depends on the touchscreen.
It is Vita.
No, there is a PS4 version, I think, but for some reason it's not cross-play, so don't know why that is. Anyway, so there's those, and on Games with Gold there is Trackmania Turbo, which I enjoyed on PS4. But
I was playing that on Thursday with some friends, and it was amazing because you can play like 100-player races together. I've never been in an online game with more than 64 people, which was Battlefield, and that felt big. And I found myself in a race with 99 other racers, which really felt like I was in the future. It was pretty mad. Also, what's quite nice is you can click the left thumbstick to say hello, and everyone just does that the whole time. So you're just on track with 99 other people just going hello, hello as you go past them. Hello, hello. It's just scrolling up like crazy down the left-hand side of the screen. But no, it's really cool. I was amazed at the technology, actually.
The last Trackmania game I played was a few years ago on PC, and it just had the instant restart, so you crash off and you instantly restart and go back to the beginning. Is it the same with the new games?
Yeah, you have that as well.
So you just got the constant instant, because you just spend hours and hours playing the same track over and over again, trying to shave thousandths of a second off your time. And
I think it's really good.
Crazy good fun. Crazy good fun.
I have to ask, does this Xbox version have the original soundtrack that we all learned to love from the Wii version?
The Wii.
I've only played it on PC before, so I don't know. I've muted the music. I know that much.
I have the Nintendo DS version, and one of the tracks in that is actually Impossible, there's a bug in it where there's probably a 45-degree angle, which as you drive up it, you fall through it. And there's no way around it, no way to jump it, and that's it. They never fixed the bug, so you can't get past. I think it's about 2/3 into the game, which was annoying. It kind of put me off the series for a while, but I don't think it was actually made by the same dev team. I think it had some of the same tracks, some of the same puzzles and stuff as other ones, I think. But yeah. As well as that, there's Tales from the Borderlands Complete. I suppose if you like Telltale games and you like Borderlands, that's probably good.
I love Borderlands, apart from the constantly respawning enemies. You go through a area, kill them all, and you come back 30 seconds later and they're all back alive again.
Yeah.
That drives me mad in games.
Okay. And that news of that comes on the front of, really, it was just beforehand, that Telltale have just laid off a quarter of their workforce, which I'm not really sure why that is, but they seem to have released quite a lot of games in a short period of time. And maybe they're winding down how many they're making and just don't need the staff at the moment. Maybe they took on an awful lot just to fill a gap, and they've done that now. So
I know that Walking Dead was very successful, but I don't really know how many people played the Batman one. I have not heard many people talk about it. Likewise with the Wolf Among Us, what was the other, and the Borderlands. Honestly, I don't really know anyone that's played those, whereas everybody played the Walking Dead ones.
I think the Minecraft story mode that did well.
Oh yeah.
As far as I'm aware, I've played through. It seemed okay. What I didn't like is I mean, I like the early Telltale games, the ones. I mean, a lot of people don't like them, but the Telltale Monkey Island games, I quite like those.
Yes, absolutely.
I like the Strong Bad game, which seems to be forgotten by everybody, but that was great. But the newer ones seem to be more QTEs and fewer puzzles and less actual point and clicking, which is veered away from what I want from a game like that, really. So I've not played many apart from Minecraft Story Mode recently.
This unstable labor market, this is a chicken coming home to roost someday. James, am I mistaken in remembering that you happen to work in games development?
No, I don't know. I work in theatre.
Okay.
That'd be James Sutherland you're mixing him up with, I think.
Oh,
yes,
different
I
James.
I apologize for that, but
that's fine.
The point remains, though. Why would someone want to work in the games industry, even with a great love of the art, not knowing that they're going to be employed reliably tomorrow?
Well, short-term money.
I mean, that's kind of a general way of the whole world at the moment with short-term contracts. No job is secure these days, I don't think. It's not like in the old days you'd have a career for life.
No. I think this is why we're seeing the rise of indie games. An awful lot of indie games seem to be doing very well simply because they're not big teams. They're not pushed for time. They don't go into crunch mode and all this kind of thing. Not quite to the same extent. And although it's more of a gamble perhaps for the people making those games, I think the chance of making a career out of it are maybe a little bit higher than they are for working for these big companies that just seem to buy studios and then close them within a week, which is a shame.
Some people got into that business early. Jeff Minter comes to mind.
Yes.
Although to hear him tell it, sometimes he makes money and sometimes he doesn't. As you say, it was a gamble.
Yeah, that's true. But he's got milk he can sell, so he's fine. So the other two games on Games of Gold are Nights into Dreams, which is that a remake of the original Saturn game, or is that the one that came out later, which is more of a reimagining?
If it's a remake, then they've very faithfully reproduced the clunky horribleness of old Saturn games down to a T. Yeah. I played it for 10 minutes. I couldn't bear to play it anymore, really. It was just ugly and hard to control and didn't even seem fun. But
if I may,
yeah, sure.
I believe that this version was what was released on the Wii originally. So
it's terrible.
It is a port of a previous remake, so they could reuse the assets and scale them up properly without having to hack them off of the old Saturn code.
Yeah, I've played the Wii version and it's nasty. I mean, I was a fan of the original and the Wii version. It basically it's like somebody looked at the original game and thought, I can do that, and they can't. It's not a proper Knights game at all. It's lost everything. So that's no good. And then Deadfall Adventures, which it says here is a first-person shooter from the Painkiller devs. So
yeah. I had a look up about it.
Painkiller. So.
Well, Painkiller is a PC first-person shooter that's notable for having throngs of enemies coming at you. You put it in the same basket as Serious Sam, so it's quite good actually. If you like, a mindless blaster. But I had a look at Deadfall Adventures, and it looks pretty naff. Honestly, it doesn't have that millions of enemies thing going for it. It's just a by the numbers first-person shooter.
So, what are we saying is the pick of that lot then? I would probably say Trackmania Turbo.
Yeah, Trackmania or Broken Sword. Or are we just talking about games with gold here?
I know, out of the whole lot. I would say Trackmania Turbo.
I'd say that's fair.
I'd go with that.
Yeah. Okay. Would anybody like to mention this correction?
Well, last episode, Turing Test was in the games with gold, and I said I thought it looked like a Gone Home in Space, but it's not. I played it last night. It's quite good, actually, but it's a complete rip-off of Portal, as far as I can tell, for the first hour. You go into a room, and then you have some objects, and you have to solve a puzzle in a Portal-y kind of way, except not quite with portals, and there's an AI that talks to you while you do it. I mean, it's incredibly similar. So, yeah.
Okay. We apologise profusely to any of those people who may have misled by mentioning the wrong thing.
Well, they still got a good game out of it.
Well, that's true. Okay, Luffer, tell us about the Battlefront 2.
Yeah, so apparently there was a big furore in the fan world on social media about the cost of opening up characters in the new Battlefront 2 game. Apparently you'd have to play the game for around 40 hours per character to unlock the character unless you paid up front a stupid amount of money. Now, I'm not
presumably
sure
exactly these characters are the big characters from the
start. Yeah, it's characters like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, sort of the big name characters.
I have some numbers for you if you're interested.
Do you? Go ahead.
Darth Vader was going to cost, I believe, 60,000 in-game credits, and that would have equated to the 40 hours of grinding that you describe. And in the States, at least, that would have ended up being an additional $100 cost of real money, I believe.
Good, so which is ridiculous, because that's twice the price of the game just to unlock the character.
Yeah. And giving people with lots of disposable income the option of getting right into the multiplayer with that advantage right away, which is incredibly unfair.
It's not a cosmetic.
As a result of
is it? It's not a cosmetic change. I mean, presumably Darth Vader comes with skills that other people in the game don't have. I guess. Yeah.
So as a result of that, anyway, EA have basically backtracked slightly and they've slashed the cost by 75%.
That's still 20,
it's still a lot.
Quid, yeah.
It's still a lot, but it's a bit better. I guess the best way to counter this thing is just not to buy the game and actually make a stand and say we're not paying this.
That's true, but a lot of people are going to anyway because it's Star Wars.
That's where EA know they've got you, isn't it? Because they know people are going to buy it and people are going to pay it. So,
do any of the older Battlefront games have a dedicated fan base the way that some of the older Call of Duty games have one? Are any of those systems or servers active still?
I was reading somewhere, it might have been Retro Gamer magazine, about someone setting up a server for one of the original Battlefront games and getting all that going. And I think the story I read was they were asking for help or testers or maybe people involved in the original game development to get in contact. So I don't know whether that has actually happened now or whether it's never going to happen. But I think there's certainly people who want that to happen, yeah.
I don't know if it qualifies as older. I was playing Battlefront 1 last night, which is only, like a year or something old. But the servers are still running on that, thank goodness.
Yeah. Are EA still making money out of that, though? Are there still like characters to buy or loot boxes or whatever in that? So
I suspect not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because they'll keep the servers running as long as the money rolls in. So. Okay. And what's this about, an 8K VR headset?
So, yeah, there's a company called Pimax who are running a Kickstarter campaign. I'm not sure if it's been funded yet or not. I believe they've got about $4 million or something ridiculous raised already. And it's to develop an 8K VR headset. It's a bit misleading with the 8K headline because it's not actually an 8K headset. It's two 4K screens. Right. So each eye would have a 4K display panel, which gives you a much wider field of view and obviously a higher pixel density as a result. And it's a company in China, I think, that are developing this. And yeah, it's been incredibly successful on Kickstarter, as you would imagine. And it's kind of the first of the next generation of VR headsets.
I'm sorry, how do you spell Pimax?
It's Pimax.
They've doubled their Kickstarter goal. So they've doubled their target. The reading I did about it that put me off a bit was I think I got the impression that it would warp at the edges, so you wouldn't have like a one-to-one object in reality as you move your head around, as things get a bit like, if you ever had one of these televisions where they take a 4:3 screen and then keep the middle of it correct aspect ratio and then stretch the outsides of it out to fill a 16:9 TV.
I know what you mean.
It's a bit like that for VR, which without having tried it, to me that sounds really bad. I mean, like the whole point of VR is that one-to-one objects being where you expect them to be. That's the immersion that I'm after. So, like,
I think what they're saying is that that's only for existing titles. So titles that have been developed with it in mind would support that wide field of view, but any existing games would use that as kind of an upscaling technology to fill the screen.
Okay, well, maybe that's okay then. I mean, to me, that's like in VR, anything that's not a one-to-one match just makes me feel sick. It needs to be right or it needs to not be there at all, generally, is what I find. But I haven't tried it, so I don't know.
And I think it would be interesting to try that because in VR particularly, it's just a peripheral vision. So I'm not necessarily sure you'd need that high resolution at the edges of your vision because you're only looking at the middle because you move your head rather than your eyes in VR.
Yeah.
So you're never really looking at the peripheral of your vision. So as long as there's information there, I'd be interested to try it anyway.
Yes,
I don't know.
Definitely.
Okay.
And so the other thing leading on from that is I recently bought some prescription lenses for my Oculus Rift, my HTC Vive, and it's the best thing I ever did for my VR because I wear glasses. I have mild astigmatism, which I wear glasses for, and I could use the headsets without glasses on. They do just about squeeze in, but it's obviously better not to have them on. And having bought these VR lenses, you just pop them in your headset, and then you have perfect vision, and it doesn't make any difference to the headset at all. It's fantastic. And I bought them from a company called vrlens.eu, and apparently that's the better company to use. There's another company called Lens Lab who make them, and on Reddit forums and various places there are lots of complaints about the quality of their optics. There's a lot of distortion and sort of barrel lens distortion on it. So if you want VR lenses for your VR headsets, then I would recommend using vrlens.eu because I've had a fantastic experience from them.
Do you clip them into the headset, or do you have to take out the existing Fresnel lenses and put them in instead?
No, the existing Fresnel lenses stay there. They just clip on top. So if someone else wants to use your headset and doesn't need glasses, you can just easily pop them out.
Oh, okay.
Now, Toby, obviously, you have to know what your prescription is because these people aren't going to be performing an examination on you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So you when you've had your eyes tested, they usually give you a card that has your prescription on it, and then you just go online and you fill out their form, and then they make the lens and post it to you. And it took about a week, I think, to come through from. I think they're in Europe somewhere, and so it only took about 6 or 7 days to get here from. So it was a fantastic purchase. Highly recommend it if you do wear glasses in VR.
And how much did this cost?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't remember. I think it was. No, I can't remember. It wasn't horrendously expensive. I think it was about £30 or £40.
Oh well, that's not expensive at all. No, I was expecting a few hundred. So
no, it was nowhere near as expensive as that. It is certainly very reasonable considering the cost of a VR headset in the first place.
Are they plastic or glass?
It's plastic, I think. Yeah. I'll just check.
That's probably why they're cheap, but that sounds fine to me. I don't have a VR headset, and it's not really something I've looked into. But when I have used VR headsets, I find my glasses do tend to get in the way. But I can't quite manage without my glasses. For somebody like me, that probably would be a good solution.
I've just popped one out of the headset, and it is glass.
Oh, okay.
Well, that is good then.
No, well, I'm not sure actually now. I'm not sure. Maybe it's plastic.
Okay. The trick is to get a scalpel and see if you can scratch them.
That's a great idea.
Hold it over a candle.
Then you'll know.
Well, it's definitely either plastic or glass.
Well, it definitely, yeah. Or possibly some kind of non-Newtonian fluid.
I'm pretty sure they're plastic.
Okay.
Play.
So let's find out what we've been playing for the last couple of weeks or so. And I'm going to nominate Kendrick to go first.
I have been playing, among my other retro choices, .hack GU Last Recode. This is the remaster of the second of the series of .hack games that originally came out on the PlayStation 2. And I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is the venerable simulated MMO. Are the three of you familiar with the narrative?
I'm aware of the games and a little about them, but not a great deal.
Yes,
all right.
Summary wouldn't hurt.
Try this on for size. It's the near future, and I guess the best way to summarize it is that Microsoft has bought Activision and has made World of Warcraft a standard feature of Microsoft Windows. Essentially, the whole world runs on one operating system, and the whole world plays one MMO. And the game is it's very clunky and very dated now, but it was hugely imaginative in that when you weren't actually playing, you were presented on your PlayStation 2 screen with what looked like a graphical user interface where you could read news about incidents in cyber cafes where players were falling down dead and unrelated advances in technology, related to material science and space exploration that wouldn't tie into what was happening to you in the MMO until the second or third episode. And so it was creating this whole world with text more than subtext. But really the fun part is being in the actual MMO itself, leveling up and watching the game give you access to things that the other quote-unquote players didn't have access to, because that's the conceit of the game, is that the MMO is breaking down because an AI is forming and it's trying to get out into the real world, and you're playing a part in its eventual discovery of its own sentience. I've only been into the first couple of hours of it, which unfortunately is lots of, barely dressed anime girls talking at each other and not actually playing the game. But once you get past that, there's really a solid action RPG in there. I bought the 3 games on the PlayStation 2, and I'm ashamed to admit that I only made it halfway through the first one. This PlayStation 4 re-release includes not just those 3 episodes, but a 4th unreleased game that I'm led to understand they didn't release on the PlayStation 2 because sales were dwindling and the PS3 was right around the corner and they didn't feel like it was worth the bother.
Right.
So it's a fantastic value to me for, to have all 4 of those games together for the price of just the one. But a lot of people aren't me, and so I don't know if anyone else is going to like this game as much as I do.
Just to be clear, it's not an actual MMO, it's a simulated MMO with NPCs, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
and with the NPCs, you don't just interact with them in-game, you also interact with them outside of the game where they email you and you set up an appointment to play together and to be in the same party or be in the same guild. It's almost as annoying as actually playing an MMO.
Okay, that sounds. I don't know. I'm struggling to get my head around how the game actually plays out. It seems to be just real life, but then I don't know.
Okay, let me describe it this way. You know how in the Persona games you have the dungeon crawling,
yes,
which is broken up by the school interaction and relationship building during the day.
Yes,
it's a lot like that. At night, you're on the MMO, grinding and leveling up and collecting equipment. During the day, you're reading emails and you're connecting with people and you're trying to get more information that will help you be more successful in the game. So it's that kind of split.
Right. Okay. When you describe it in terms of Persona, I think I want to play it now. But yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Okay. So Toby, what have you been up to?
So this weekend there was a free weekend on Steam for a game called Lawbreakers, which I'd had my eye on for a while. I've always liked the old first-person shooters like Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament, and this is like the modern reimagining of them. It's a game from Cliff Bleszinski. Probably came out about a year ago, maybe a bit less than that. So I thought I'd give the free weekend a go. Played it across the weekend. It runs really well, which I was really pleased with. It like just on default settings, I was pulling 120 to 350 frames per second, which is like on a modern game. You don't expect that, and you can alt tab out and everything. It just like off the bat, I liked it just because it was running really nicely on my computer. The gist of it is it's like a fast-paced arena FPS, multiplayer only, with a couple of different game modes, sort of like capture the flag. But they have the gimmick, I guess, is that there are regions of the levels which have gravity and regions of the levels that don't have gravity, so that you can be running along and then launch yourself into the air and then fly up over behind someone and then land and then run around the back. Like it's very much you're looking in all directions at all times and trying to think how to use the level three-dimensionally rather than just on a flat plane.
So is that why it's called Lawbreakers, as in it's law of gravity breakers rather than specific law?
It's got this ridiculous law, that's LORE, where there's the people who agree with breaking gravity, and there's the people who think that you should obey gravity. And if you're on one side, that's the law, and the other side is called the breakers. And it's a bit like Overwatch in that you have like 5 different characters to choose from, and they all have particular abilities, and there's like 5 that are law and 5 that are breakers. That was where I originally struggled with it, because I'm not very good at these modern class-based shooters, because I always just get a bit overwhelmed with all the options. Like Overwatch, I just kind of like, my favorite first-person shooter is Instajib. That gets rid of the armor and the health and the weapons, and you just have to point and shoot. That's my level. When you add normal deathmatching in, it gets a little bit complicated, but I still like it. But when you go to something like Overwatch or Lawbreakers, it's just the number of options is just a bit overwhelming, and I struggled to get my head around it. So like one of the characters in Lawbreakers, his ability is to put up a wall in front of him to protect himself, but I just kept accidentally triggering it while I was trying to run forward. So I was just like building a wall and running straight into it. So it's more than my old brain can cope with. And the medic character, I couldn't get my head around them either. Like I couldn't actually work out how to heal anyone. This is basic stuff, and if I spent more time in the weekend, the more time with the game I could get around to learning it. But across the weekend there was a lot of characters to learn. But in the end, I did work out a couple of characters that I was keen on. There's this lady with a rocket launcher, or I guess if you play on the other team, she's a man with a rocket launcher. And she was pretty good for the uplink game mode, which is sort of like King of the Hill, where you have to defend an area. And then there's like a bog standard soldier guy that I gravitated towards, who seemed to work for all of the other game modes, which were more like capture the flag and a general deathmatch. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I was quite tempted to buy it. It's on sale at the moment for £12, which is pretty cheap. And when I downloaded it for the free weekend, I worked out that if you kept it running, then the free weekend would potentially last forever. So I thought I'd managed to pull a fast one there and have it for a bit longer. So I just left it on all night, but then unfortunately we had a power cut in the morning, so I didn't get to keep it forever. But I'm sort of hovering over the buy button, because I don't know if it's kind of got the feeling of a game that's probably about to go free to play. I was looking at the player counts on it, and over the last sort of 6 months, some months it's got like 7,000 players, and some months it's got 50. So I guess 7,000 is when they're doing a special weekend, and 50 is like the normal month by month numbers, which is a pretty low number. So I don't know if I'm willing to launch £12 on a game that might not have people playing on it, or that's probably going to just go free with cosmetic loot crates in the next 6 months anyway. So I'll just get it then, Maybe 2 cents.
I've seen a lot of positive stuff about it. I've seen a lot of positive talk about it. Yeah. And a lot of people saying that it's just been overlooked by Overwatch, really. Which I realise they're not quite the same type of game, but to the layman, that they probably are.
Yeah, it seems a lot faster and a lot more, dare I say, skill-based than Overwatch, a lot more like twitchy. I really like that. I've only played Overwatch on the Xbox, so I haven't played it with a mouse and keyboard. I don't know what it's like on PC, but this really did feel a lot like I was playing Unreal Tournament. It had that sort of speed and pace of those old first-person shooter games that I cut my teeth on. So I thought it was pretty good.
On the topic of platforms, Lawbreakers is obviously PC exclusive at this time. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay. Do you think it would work on a console? Do you think there's enough support or there would be enough support for it there?
Well, I mean, it's about a level playing field, isn't it? I mean, the game itself is all about being fast and being able to look in all directions very quickly. And for that, you would probably want a mouse and keyboard. But if everyone was on the controller, then I guess that would not be such a problem. But you wouldn't get that freedom of movement that, for me, is so exhilarating when I play the game. When you pull off a cool move and you do something really quick and whip around and shoot someone, then it feels good. And that's harder to do with a controller.
And Luffer.
Andy, what have you been playing?
Oh, me. All right, we'll go with me then. Well, I just want to quickly mention Stardew Valley because I've now racked up, I think, 85 hours on that. I think I'm into the kind of the end game now. There's a bit at some point in the game where you are basically rated on how good a farmer you've been, and a number of candles light up, and I've managed to get all 4 candles. That won't make much sense to anybody who hasn't played the game, but it's a marker of sorts of how well you're doing.
4 candles.
4 candles, yeah.
So the end game isn't all the bumblebees die and all of your crops don't get pollinated or something like that. It's got a more positive outlook, has it?
Yeah. Unless of course I forget to actually do anything during the day, and just I keep forgetting to pause the game when I have to go and do something else, and come back and found I've got no energy left and have to rush home and go to bed, which is a pain. But yeah, I mean it's I've said before it's Harvest Moon in different clothes. And there's not a huge amount to it, but it's addictive, and I'm enjoying it. I'm not sure I've got another 80 hours left in me. I think I'm running out of things to do now, so maybe another 20 and I'll call it a day, but we'll see. So there's
Please
that.
Tell me you speak to yourself in a West Country accent while you're playing.
I don't need to do that because my daughter does an American South accent all the time. She
Even better.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing that's stopping me playing it, is the fact that she's stolen it. So, yeah. Anyway,
does she have her own save, or is she going in and eating all your apples?
No, she's got her own save. Now, one of the selling points of it on the Switch was that it was going to be the first platform to get simultaneous multiplayer, which it doesn't have yet. I was kind of expecting it to have it to start with, but it hasn't. So I was kind of holding on until that happened so that she could play at the same time as me, but I don't know. I couldn't wait any longer, and she was.
Oh, so you mean as in simultaneous multiplayer on one console?
Yes.
So you can share controller and yeah.
I don't know how it was going to work. Presumably, you would have the same farm, but you would both be able to go off and do different things. I presume. I don't know.
That sounds quite cool.
Yeah. So that'd be quite good, especially when it comes to watering things. I could go and do fun stuff like kill things, and she can just go and water all the crops. Slave labor for children. It's brilliant.
Or she doesn't get pudding.
oh yeah, there's that. Anyway, so that's Stardew Valley. I'll just mention this mainly for Luffer's benefit. I was given a copy of Race 07, or Race Ignition, as it might also be called, which you may or may not have heard of. I'll make a mention here. There's somebody on Twitter called Indie Gamer Chick, and every now and again, usually for events like Halloween and for Christmas and for New Year and stuff, she manages to convince a load of indie game developers to give her Steam keys for games, which she then hands out to people. With the proviso that you actually talk about the game that you've been given. So, and they're usually given out randomly as well. So I was given this game, Race Ignition, so I dutifully went and played it for a bit. And it's a racing simulation game, not really Formula One, because I was driving a Mini. I did one track through Anderstorp in Sweden, if anybody knows the track. I didn't.
Yes, I know it, but then I've played a lot of tracks. So.
Yeah, sure. And lo and behold, couldn't get around the first corner. So,
I assume you were playing this with a mouse, or a gamepad rather than a steering
wheel.
No.
It didn't appear to support any gamepads or a mouse, so I had to play it with the arrow keys. So,
yeah, racing simulations with a keyboard is probably not going to give you the best experience or most realistic simulation.
Absolutely. I did find the guy who kept telling me that my suspension was shot or my brakes were starting to fail. I thought that was quite good as I bounced off every single barrier on every single corner. That was yeah. Anyway, I thought you might.
Maybe they should add a bumper car mode.
It's possibly there. I just didn't see it. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much you smash up your car. I mean, I wasn't intending to smash it up, but it did get quite smashed. It didn't seem to affect very much. So I don't know if that's another option there somewhere to make it a bit more realistic. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Culture Corner for a moment. I thought that in the UK, bumper cars were known as dodgems.
Yes, but officially, you're not supposed to bump into other people. There's big signs up saying don't bump into other people.
You have to dodge them.
Yeah, dodge them, yeah.
Okay,
but
because
that's the point.
Right, so bumper cars is what they really are, and dodgems is what the man wants you to call them.
That's right.
I think that's a fair summary.
Yeah,
excellent.
It is. Okay. But the main thing I've been playing, well, the main thing is actually Stardew Valley, but we've talked about that before. So the other main thing that I've been playing for the last few weeks is Super Mario Odyssey, which is fun. It's got nice blue skies and red skies and purple skies and black skies and lots of other coloured skies, apart from the first level, which is mostly monochrome and a bit dull and a bit disappointing to the start of the game. Actually, you open up onto the level and it's almost black and white. There's not much there. There's a lot of fog, and it's not a good introduction to the game. And then you start to get the feeling that it's a lot like Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine, as opposed to some of the other Mario games. Only instead of collecting stars and shines, you collect moons. And instead of there being 120 of them, there are hundreds. There are so many moons to collect. There's I think I've got 750 so far, and I know there's well over 800. Some of them are fun, and some of them are obvious, like there's a glowing bump on the ground, and if there's a glowing bump on the ground, you ground pound it. Sometimes you get a moon, sometimes you get some coins, occasionally you get baddies come out. But the problem is so many of the moons are actually boring or obvious or pointless or tedious, or there's just too many. I think I'd have preferred far fewer of them, but a better experience for each.
I have to say,
I suspect
I never really got on with collectathon platformers in general, but including Mario 64. For me, if I like in Mario 64, you're in the castle and there's all these doors, and you can do them in more or less, pick your order, and the aim of each one is to get the star, and then that might unlock some more doors. But for me, that just doesn't motivate me. What I need is a game that goes from left to right, and at the far right is the final boss, and then I will travel through it. That motivates me. But this whole you need to go and get 700 moons or 60 stars or something it just seems like work to me. I know it's it's ridiculous, but that's how my brain works.
Well, it does work a little bit towards what you want, because you don't need anywhere near that many in order to actually finish the game.
Okay.
And in actual fact, around half of them, possibly even more than half of them, are locked off until after you've completed the game.
Yeah.
So I was going to say the Moon Collection is a reward system for its own sake. It's nothing to do with actually completing the game or achieving any kind of stated goal. It's a goal unto itself.
You need to get you need to get a number of moons to move on to the next level, but in actual fact, you can buy some of them from a shop, not with real money, but with coins you've actually collected in the game. So you can kind of jump ahead a bit there. But I don't know. It's just not as tight. It's not as focused as Mario 64 was. The worlds for the most part are bigger, and some of them look fantastic. I mean, every single one's got a different art style to the rest of them. It's got its own color scheme and its own gimmick. It's like the one that a lot of people complained about and hated the look of was New Donk City, with the more realistic looking people in there, and that's actually one of the better levels in the game, because the layout and it's more interesting to try and get to places within there. There's a lot of verticality in there, and obviously climbing up towers and things, and wondering how to get from the top of one tower to another tower.
Yeah,
whereas some of the other ones.
When I saw that, it reminded me of is it one of the Sonic games where he meets the president and he first time you see him with a real human, and it was just so jarring for these worlds to combine.
It's Station Square from Sonic Adventure. That's exactly what it looked like, Station Square. But it's not like that. That was my fear as well going into it, but it actually turns out that that's quite good.
Okay.
One of the first things
the levels themselves are fine. They're okay. There's a couple that feel too small. There's I think it's called the Lake Kingdom, which is it seems very, very enclosed. You've got high walls around it, and it seems artificially small. But then there's the Sand Kingdom, which is massive. It's a massive desert, and it takes ages to get from one side to the other. But there's not an awful lot in the gaps between the town and the pyramid and the Oasis and the other bit areas are there. There's not a lot on the way, so it's odd. It feels a bit all over the place, almost as if a different team has developed each of the levels. So it doesn't quite gel together. I mean, part of that is the point, is that each one needs to be completely different to all the others. And then there are some things that tie them all together. So some of the moons that you get on each one are the same. Like there's Coopers that you race on each one. There are people wearing hats that you have to find in each one. And there's other recurring things that happen. But I don't know. It just doesn't feel. It doesn't feel as good as Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine, and I feel it's a bit disappointing as a result. But the positive side, I mean, Mario controls really well because he's Mario. He does. Although there's a downside there as well. Some of the moves that you can only do with motion controls, which when you're playing handheld with the Joy-Con actually strapped to the Switch, is a pain because you can't do them properly. There's at least one moon I've found so far, which is impossible to actually get in that way. The gimmick of the game, by the way, is that you throw your hat onto baddies, and then you can then control the baddies or just other characters. So one of the moons that you get requires you to take over a frog, which can jump really high. And then to jump a little bit higher, you have to shake the Joy-Con. But you can't shake the Joy-Con because you've got the whole Switch in your hand, and if you shake it, it doesn't work properly. So you literally can't jump high enough in order to get the moon. So that's a pain and seems a bit silly. But other than that, the cap mechanics is better than I thought it was going to be, and capturing enemies makes for clever puzzles, and it changes the platforming up a bit. You can also throw the cap and then jump on the cap to jump a bit further or a bit higher. So that's good. And throwing the cap to attack things as well, that's okay. I didn't think I was going to like that, but that's all right. It's a bit imprecise sometimes, but not really so much that it's a problem.
Is it explained why the cap can suddenly control frogs? Well, how does that come about?
The cap is a sentient being. The cap's girlfriend has been kidnapped along with Peach, and so you and the cap...
Has the cap always been a sentient being, and it's just never spoken up before now?
It's not actually Mario's cap.
Ah, right.
It's another cap. It's a cap being from the Cap Kingdom. And one of the first things that happens in the game is Mario's actual cap gets shredded.
Right,
no!
Okay.
Yeah, which kind of sets the scene for the whole game, really. But anyway, yeah. Another down point is the bosses. There are these rabbit things that they call broodals, which are terribly designed, horrible things. I mean, it's a terrible name for a start. And they appear several times each. They're far too easy to beat, and they're just awful designs. And Nintendo can create amazing characters, or even boring characters, and make them. And Mario himself is boring. He's just a fat man. He's not anything spectacular, but they managed to make him interesting or whatever. But these boodles, there's nothing to them. They're not good at all. And why didn't they use some of the other characters they already had? Like, they could have used the Koopa Kids, which I understand that not everybody likes, but at least would have made more sense in the game. And they're already there. But the Boodle Rabbits are like they're Bubsy the Bobcat tier level design. They're awful. And this is not really a spoiler, but after you complete the game, you unlock basically a boss rush where you have to fight them all again. Anyway, so Super Mario Odyssey, it's good, but I'm disappointed.
Out of 10?
8, 7 maybe. I mean, I've had fun, but it's too long. There's too much in it. They should have cut some stuff down. And yeah.
Is it too long if you're just interested in the story?
No, it's only about probably 8, maybe 10 hours long.
Yeah, okay.
So that's my rant. Luffer, something good, hopefully.
So just quickly, question before we move on to what I've been playing. Are you still playing Golf Story?
A little. Not an awful lot, mainly because of Stardew Valley and Super Mario Odyssey, and not being able to use my Switch because it's been stolen.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's not through want of trying.
Right, in that case, I shall move on to what I've been playing, which this time is exclusively on mobile because I've been working and not really had any time to game on the computer. So just in my breaks in between work, I have been playing a game called Color Switch, which is absolutely amazing. I believe it's free, and it may or may not be ad supported, but if it is ad supported, I've bought the ad free version, and I can't remember if I paid for it or not. But essentially, it's one main game mode where you just tap the screen to bounce the ball or whatever object, whatever icon you are, because you unlock different icons, which has no bearing on the actual gameplay. It's just a cosmetic thing. But you just tap on the screen to bounce up and down, and you have to work your way through various different levels and obstacles. And the color of your icon changes, and the obstacles you have to get through are different colors. So if your icon matches the color of the obstacle, you can pass through it. If you're a different color, then you die. And you collect stars as you go through, which enables you to unlock more icons in the game. And it's just a high score thing. The further up you get, the more points you get. So that's the main game mode. But then on top of that, there's a game modes section. And inside there are dozens and dozens of different game modes, and each one is a completely different game. Essentially, the same basic rule applies if you have a coloured icon, and you have to get your colour. If you have a colour obstacle, then you can go through it. But they change up the gaming. So there's like a version that's Breakout, where you change your color of your icon, and whatever color icon you are, if you hit those colors, it destroys those bricks, and then you can change the color of your icon and break different bricks. So there's that mode, and there's an ice mode where you slide down this ramp continuously, and you have to jump through the hoops and various obstacles. There's another mode which is like a platformer mode where you have to jump over obstacles, and you're constantly moving along the platform, and you have to work your way through the levels. I mean, there's just dozens and dozens and dozens of games, and each one has like 100 different levels within it. So there's just hours and hours and hours of gameplay in there, and it's fantastic. And they keep updating it as well. So I'll get 100% on one certain game mode, and then 2 days later they'll say, they'll update the game, and there'll be another 20 levels to play. So that's fantastic. It's just a brilliant game. I highly recommend that one. It's been brilliant.
Is that free to play or?
I believe it's free to play. I can't remember if it was ad supported or not. It may have been ad supported, and I've paid to unlock the full version.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely one to check out. So the other game we've been playing is also on Android, and it's a game called Yellow, and that's by a chap called Bart Bonte, and he's got a few games on the App Store. Yellow is one of them, and it's basically a puzzle game. And the idea is to turn the screen of your phone yellow, and each level is a different puzzle. But the kind of gimmick is that he doesn't tell you what the puzzle is, so you don't know what you've got to do to solve it. You have to, part of the whole object is to figure out what the puzzle is and then solve the puzzle. So right. each different level has a different logic to it, and you have to figure out what that is.
This reminds me a bit of a game called Windowsill. Do you know Windowsill?
Yes, I remember. That was what I was thinking of, but I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah. Do you know? Have you played that, Luffer?
I haven't. No, I will check that one out.
Windows. I think it's on Steam, but it's also possibly available as a downloadable Flash game, and it's as you described. So you're a little ball or a little cart, and you roll onto the left of a fixed screen, and each screen is a lovely, beautifully designed little mechanism of like maybe a hill with some tubes and a ramp and a thing that goes, or pipe that pumps out, and you have to work out how each one operates and navigate through the levels like that. What you're describing sounds similar. So
yeah, so with Yellow you just get lots of different colours on the screen, and then if you tap a certain area it might change it from red to green, and then if you tap it twice it turns it yellow. So then everything that's a different colour you tap twice and then it goes yellow, and when you've done that you solve that puzzle, and then you go to the next one, and it'll be a completely different logic to figure out. And it's not a very long game. I think there was only about 40 different puzzles, but it was thoroughly enjoyable, and some of them are pretty tricky to figure out. And then the other one I've been playing is called What's in the Box, and that's also a Bart Bonte game.
Is this like Curiosity by any chance?
I don't think so. I don't know that one.
Is it like 7?
Nothing. So what's in the box? It's basically it's called What's Inside the Box, rather than What's in the Box. What's inside the box? And it's similar to Yellow, where you have a different puzzle, and each time you solve the puzzle, you open that layer of the box, and you have to. There's 100 levels in total, and you have to work your way through all of the puzzles to find out what's inside the box at the end of the game. And again, it's brilliant. There's some ingenious puzzles in there. Some of them use the gyroscope in your phone, so you have to roll a ball around to solve a maze. There are sliding tile games, which personally I hate, but I was able to bear them in this game just to get through the level. because each level is very short as well. So even if you don't like a particular puzzle, it's over quite quickly, and you'll be onto a different puzzle. And again, that's brilliant. And some of them are just so devious. And sometimes it will give you clues on the screen. Other times you're pretty much left to your own devices just to figure out how to solve the puzzle. And brilliant. In fact, most of the stuff that Bonte has released has been brilliant. He did a game called Factory Balls, I don't know, which some people might have played, where you have to match the ball with various icons, and you layer things on top of the ball. You'd have to play it to understand exactly that. But yeah, he's a very clever developer, and he's doing some interesting things, so it's worth checking those out.
So the three games you've listed, I had a look, they're all on iOS as well as Android. My question is, how on earth do you find mobile games? Because I just never even look in that box because it's full of rubbish.
I generally get them from recommendations from other people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Yellow was a recommendation to me from someone else, and then I found what's inside the box by looking at other games from that developer, because I thought, this is a game, what else has he made, and discovered it through that.
I was going to say advertising and rating systems in both of the app stores are complete nonsense. They don't lead you to reasonable opinions about the product at all.
No, what they need is some kind of curation system, which like on Steam, which I think Toby might know some more about.
Yes. Prior to this podcast going out, I set up a Steam Curator page for the ugvm group for anyone who wants to follow that. But I did distribute the link with you guys beforehand, and I'm not sure if you could get to it okay. Did you manage to find it okay?
Managed to find a way in the end to get there, and I will put a link in the show notes when I actually put the episode up.
Yeah, that'd be good. I think the gist of it is you go, within Steam, you go to the store and then click on curators and then find more curators, and then you search for ugvm. Anyway, we'll be sticking in games that we discussed that are available on there in that, so you can sort of, an alternative to the show notes, I guess.
For me, there's not that much actually. I had loads of stuff on my list of things that I wanted, but I think Stardew Valley kind of just killed my enthusiasm for anything else, because I don't think I'll be playing anything else for a while.
I just had a fantastic thought. What if the next version of Stardew Valley also includes golf courses?
Then we'd never need to buy another game. That would be it. Yeah.
I'll get working on it right away. Good.
Yeah, that's a USP definitely. So, does anybody else like to offer anything that they are looking forward to? Toby, maybe.
I remembered the other day that Johann Sebastian Joust exists, and I still haven't played it, and I own it now. It's come out on PC, but you obviously need a bunch of PS Move controllers, and I remember when it came out they were quite expensive, and I thought, yeah, but it's a waggly motion controller, that's a fad, I'll get them cheap in 5 years' time. But PlayStation are still using them for PSVR, so there's no chance of getting them for cheap. So what I want is cheap PS Move controllers.
There was a time when they were cheap. They because PS Move had just died a death. They all got traded in, went very, very cheap. I remember seeing the main bit, because there's two, isn't there? There's like the handheld, like half a controller bit, and then there's the wand bit. I remember seeing the wands. I remember seeing the wands for $5 in game. But then PSVR came out, needed them again, and the price shot up again. It's kind of like the Wii remotes when the Wii U came out. Wii remotes were pennies, and then the Wii U came out, and suddenly everybody realised they needed them again, and the prices went back up.
So basically,
to be clear, this is the same PS Move controller that was used on the PS3.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's astonishing to me. I'm surprised they didn't just go and create a brand new controller standard like they always do.
I think it was more to keep the cost of entry down for VR than because they want to establish themselves in the VR marketplace as the market leaders, and to do that you need to be cheap.
Okay, Luffer, what do you want?
Talking of VR, I want better VR headsets. Looking at the Pimax 8K VR, I'm not sure I'm ready to jump on the 8K just yet, because that's going to need a lot of horsepower graphics-wise to drive that, and also it's very early in the early days. But certainly interested in looking in for the new versions of the HTC Vive and Oculus Rift to see what they're planning for their next generation, because we must be getting close to them announcing something.
I look at the Pimax, and it's like with the Xbox One X, I think it's fixing the wrong thing. Like, I'm not too bothered about the screen door effect. I don't really, after I've been in VR for a couple of minutes, I don't see it unless I look out for it. But
explain what the screen door effect is.
So screen door effect is where you can see the edges of the pixels, where the pixels join together. You can see like a line, a very fine line.
Right.
As Toby says, when you're actually playing it and you're immersed in the game, you really don't notice the screen door at all. Right. So it's not much. I mean, people make it more of an issue than it really is in practice.
Yeah, it's called screen door effect. It doesn't make sense to us in England because we don't have them, but in countries where they have lots of mozzies and they have their front door and then they have that screen door as well. You know, the
like
one
on Neighbours, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. So that would put like a mesh over everything when you looked out at your neighbours, and VR is a bit like that. But to me, it doesn't bother me. What bothers me when I wear my Vive for a while is the weight of the thing, and that's what I want to go down. And I look at the Pimax, and it's huge.
Massive,
exactly. So it's fixing the wrong thing.
I also think wireless is going to be a big game changer for VR as well, because being tethered is a big annoyance.
But that comes with batteries, so it's trade-offs, isn't it? You know,
it does.
The weight I want to get rid of, but both of those would be good. Yeah.
Surely there must be a wearable battery pack or something you can have that you know means it doesn't need to be clamped to your head, but you could wear it like as.
Well, people have made VR backpacks, so you can have like a laptop and a battery and everything on a backpack, and then have the headset connected, so you can walk around with the backpack on, and then you can be completely wire-free in that regard.
There's another, because obviously carrying your computer on the back is not great, but there's another one which is a wireless emitter that sits on top of your head that's about the size of a Twinkie, I guess. And then you have another thing like a lighthouse in your room, but it's more money. And if you just spend a lot of money on a VR headset, then to spend another few £100 on being wireless, it's not taken off.
I could be wrong, but aren't Vive HTC actually making a wireless version soon or is someone making a wireless version?
That's the one I'm talking about. That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh, that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it does exist.
So there's that. So looking for news on the new generation of VR headsets. I want to see some stuff on that. That other thing I'd like to see is a good football manager game for mobile or for mobile in general. I quite enjoy playing football manager games on the computer, but I just don't have the time to spend hours sat in front of the computer playing football manager games.
You may be in luck. You may be in luck.
I was going to say, is this the Sega version for mobile? Is that not an acceptable alternative?
I haven't played the Sega version. I was not aware of that one. I played a game called Football Chairman on Android, but it was very shallow. It just didn't go into enough detail for me, enough depth. So maybe I should look at the Sega one.
Yeah, they own Football Manager license now, don't they? I'm sure they do. It's bound to be there somewhere. Now, what I was going to say is Kevin Toms, who basically invented Football Manager with the game Football Manager originally back in the 80s, and then he was the first guy to sell 1 million copies of one computer game, I believe. He's back and developing a new Football Manager game.
Okay.
So there is a good chance that might be heading its way to Android. I don't think he's kickstarting it. I think he's actually got funding for it some other way. So I don't know whether that'll make it more or less likely to come out. But so that could be on the way.
Okay, and so apart from that, the only other thing I want is to look at building myself a retro arcade cabinet. I think RetroPie exists, which is quite good now.
Yes.
And obviously, using legally obtained ROMs for games you own, you can create your own cabinet on a Raspberry Pi. And I'd quite like to do that as a little project when I have some time.
Yes. I've thought the same thing as well, actually, using Raspberry Pi. Seems to be the perfect thing for it.
I actually have a cocktail arcade unit that once housed a Moonlander game in it. All the components are burned out, but it's been on my to-do list for 20 years now to replace the CRT with an LCD screen, add a console with genuine arcade controls on it, and get a PC in it to run some emulation. And I just haven't found the time.
So it's interesting that you say you're looking at replacing the CRT with an LCD, because when I was looking at building one myself, I was planning on actually finding a CRT to put in it.
Yeah.
Well, the CRT in question that I would be replacing happens to be monochrome. It's a black and white CRT, so wouldn't be much use for other games.
Yeah, it's good. The other good thing about the Raspberry Pi is that if you do have a CRT and everything, there is actually an add-on board for the Raspberry Pi that talks directly to them, and there is also another add-on board which is designed to be wired directly into arcade controls. And I believe they're supported natively in RetroPie now as well. So it can't get any easier than that, really, putting one together. And yeah, I still haven't done it. So there we go.
So yeah, that's me done. So I guess it's Kendrick.
Kendrick, yeah.
All right. Well, very briefly, I'm on the lookout for re-releases of Wii U exclusive titles. Basically, I'm waiting for Bayonetta 2 to come out on some other platform because I couldn't justify getting a Wii U just for the one game. I'm also watching the East 8 news with interest. I don't know if you follow the RPG news at all, but that game was released in an extraordinarily buggy state to the point where it wasn't even playable on consoles. And so there's been updates and fixes promised, and the noise is kind of tapered off. But I'm waiting for that situation to settle itself. The main thing I want right now, after having seen some footage of it online, is Monster Hunter World, which is surprising the heck out of me because I felt like I was kind of burnt out on Monster Hunter after the latest 3DS iteration of it. 4 Super Turbo Hyper,
double cross, isn't it? I think.
Or yes, double cross. That's what it was. XX, as it were.
Yeah, kiss.
And
wrong.
I couldn't get very deep into the game because A, it depends a lot on multiplayer, and B, it was a lot of multiple boss rush type missions where you have to fight 3 different types of bosses with 3 different elemental properties, and doing that as a solo player just wasn't entertaining. The big change with Monster Hunter World, apart from it being available on PC, is that you no longer have to wait for it to load between different areas of the gameplay instance. It's a seamless play area where you're just chasing the monster through narrow passageways and into wide open grasslandy areas or enclosed forest areas. There's no more loading screens. So I don't know if they're going to get away with it. I don't know if this is going to work, especially if Capcom plans to support cross-platform play. But I can't wait to see it, and I'm very likely to just buy it and play the heck out of it anyway, and then get burnt out all over again.
I've never played a Monster Hunter game, but I'm always I quite like to give it a try. I'm really attracted by the big monsters. Like, I know people don't like boss battles, but I do, and they have really charismatic creature designs. So whenever I see those screenshots or those videos, I'm like, yeah, this is a game I want to try. But then when I watch more gameplay videos, there seems to be an awful lot of going back to the village and fiddling with your armor stats, which I don't really feel like I have time for these days.
That's where the real game is, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a game designed to cultivate your OCD. It is extraordinarily tedious in certain ways. If you play as a fighter with bladed weapons, you have to stop every now and again to sharpen the knives and sharpen the swords before you can continue a fight. If you're a fighter with a ranged weapon, a bowgun as they call it in the game, every now and again you have to stop and craft more ammunition out of the plant material and animal dung lying around. Mm-hmm. And for an insane person like me, that's incredibly entertaining to a point. For most people who just want to get out there and play a multiplayer co-op game, maybe not so much. And Capcom hasn't quite cracked the Western market in terms of getting the kind of penetration and popularity that they have in Japan with the series.
Which is why Monster Hunter World has a few concessions, I think. It seems to be, from what I've read, a bit quicker, a bit less clunky, a bit less grindy, unless you really want it to be. Generally, just a bit faster and a bit less Japanese, I suppose.
Well, that will be the trick, is if Capcom manages to capture Western imaginations without losing their Japanese audience, or if, God forbid, they've just completely split their market and decide to release a different edition of the game for each side of the world. I don't know if that's what they've done, but that seems like the next logical step.
Yeah, well, it is coming alongside. It's already out. There's a Switch Monster Hunter game, which is an improved version of Double Cross, I believe. But I think there is a plan to bring another one out, which is more like a traditional Monster Hunter game, if you see what I mean. So there'll be something for both types of player. But it'll be interesting to see if anybody shifts over to Monster Hunter World, I think.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what we want. We've also been sent a listener question by Thermal Satsuma, who has asked, what games do you want for Christmas? So we'd like to expand that to just generally, what do you want for Christmas? Because we have just mentioned quite a few games. But one thing I'd like to say, firstly, is it's nowhere near Christmas, Thermal Satsuma. I'm
The
probably...
decorations in the storefront disagree.
They've generally this is August.
My rule of thumb is
before Halloween.
I deny the existence of Christmas until the 1st of December.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. I haven't given this any thought at all yet, really, because it all feels like that's something about next year. Surely it can't be Christmas yet.
But the thing is, I'm probably into game ban season now, where I can't buy any games in case I get them as a present at Christmas. So one game which I probably would have bought between now and Christmas, but now I probably can't buy, is Fire Emblem Warriors, which I'm still looking forward to. But as I said, it's been tempered by other things that I've been playing instead. But the thing is, most of the games I buy now, I'm finding are digital only releases. There's not even a physical version of most of them. So you look at things like Stardew Valley and Golf Story and stuff like that, and very likely Rocket League, which came out yesterday on the Switch. It's possible I'm going to buy that as well now. So I'm not likely to get them for Christmas if they're digital only. So what I want for Christmas, Fire Emblem Warriors.
Yeah, if you were to push me on it, I'd quite like the whatever the Monster Hunter's called that you can play cross-play on the Wii U and the 3DS, because we have both of those bits of hardware in this house, so that sounds like a fun thing to do.
Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, yeah.
Is it 3 Ultimate or Tri Ultimate?
Ooh, no, it's 3 Ultimate in the UK. Elsewhere, It might be Tri Ultimate, I think. It was Monster Hunter 3 Tri somewhere. I can't remember, but it's 3 Ultimate. So it's the same game. It's just slightly different name.
Right.
But yeah, that's a good one. That's the last one I played properly, I think. But it's good.
That was the one with the swimming underwater, was it not?
It was, yeah.
You
played
it on 3DS or on Wii U?
On both. I've got both. You can actually transfer your save from one to the other as well.
They both work as well as one another? One doesn't feel too much like a second-class experience?
No, with the exception that the standard 3DS doesn't have a second analog stick. So looking around a bit is a bit of a pain.
But the new one does, right?
The new one does.
Yeah.
The game came out before that existed, but the new one emulates the add-on that had a second stick on it that you could buy for games like Monster Hunter.
Oh, that's clever.
That was called the Circle LL pad.
That's right, yeah. So you can use it in that. So yeah, it's good. I think it's got a slight frame rate increase as well on the new 3DS, which is quite good. But then the frame rate was not exactly fantastic on any of the platforms, I don't think.
It's worth mentioning that the Circle LL pad and the new 3DS also have extra shoulder buttons that aren't present on the original 3DS.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to push me on something for Christmas, I would probably say a Nintendo Switch, because although I probably wouldn't buy one for myself, if someone wants to buy it for me as a present, I would gladly receive it.
Good. I will put the podcast PayPal address somewhere. We'll have a whip round.
I thought that's why he was asking.
Oh, he's going to buy them for us. Oh, that's very kind.
Nice.
Oh, in that case, I'd like a car.
I would like a Lamborghini Gallardo Spider, please.
Oh, good.
Can I have two of those?
Oh, you only want two because he's got one.
Well, no, he needs one that's left-hand drive and one that's right-hand drive.
Oh, right.
For the continent.
Yes. We're not allowed on there anymore.
Oh, that's right, Brexit. Damn.
Yeah. Kendrick, what would you like for Christmas?
Well,
or the holiday period?
Interestingly, I have a different problem to yours, deKay, in that I ask for games for Christmas and I never get them, partly because most of my family doesn't consider games to be appropriate adult entertainment. Entertainment for grown men and women, I should say, not adult entertainment. That's a completely different subject. But also because the ones who do don't have any idea about what the games market looks like or what I might actually like. I will ask for something and then I will get something else that was had a vaguely similar title for a platform that no longer exists. I'm sorry. Have you ever read the webcomic VG Cats?
I know it. Yeah, they have. It's like cats with fangs, isn't it? Which cats
do have
fangs?
They're cats,
like real cats. Yeah.
Exactly.
They're anthropomorphic cats that insert themselves into video game worlds, and there's this beautiful Christmas themed series of panels that they do where the couple, they're known as Eris, and I forget what the boy cat is named. but he takes a number of demeaning second jobs, all for the purpose of getting Eris, the game that she's been coveting in the game store, but that she can't afford. And when she finally opens her Christmas present, it's not the game that she wanted, but the last one in the series from 2 years ago. But she's so grateful that he worked so hard to get it that, she enjoys playing it anyway. So that's kind of my situation. I get games for Christmas, but they're not ever what I asked for. So what I want for Christmas is for somebody to understand what I'm asking for without having to be, led to the shelf.
You need to give them a URL to a specific item on eBay.
Yeah.
I need to give them a universal product code number is what I need to give them.
Yeah.
That's right. Just buy it for yourself and charge them.
That'll work. I'll do exactly that.
And that's it. We had just one listener question. We may only have had one listener. So, but thanks for that anyway. And that's the end. So thanks very much for listening. If anybody has any questions or any comments or anything like that, if they would like to email us at podcast@ugvm.org.uk, or you can follow us and send us a message on Twitter at UGVM Podcast. Or, of course, you can leave a comment on the UGVM website, ugvm.org.uk/podcast. Would anybody else like to plug anything that they do or involved in or where they are or that kind of thing?
I would like to mention that over on GameSX.com, we not only talk about retro game modification, we also talk about arcade hardware hacking and building your own hardware. A popular thread on the site is about custom wireless controllers for systems that did not previously have wireless controllers and building your own arcade system. So if you heard that in today's podcast and you're interested in learning more about how to do it yourself, come to GameSX.com.
Okay.
I know where I'm going at the end of this.
Toby, anything?
You find me on most gaming services as Ask Toby. You can find me on Twitter as @SKTOBY.
Okay. And Luffer?
I'm at Lufferov on virtually all the various gaming platforms, LUFFEROV, and I'm also on YouTube. You'll find me at Lufferov on that as well.
Very good. Well, that's it from us then. So join us next time. Hopefully there will be a next time. But for now, goodbye.
Good night and Merry Christmas.
Good night.
All right.
Game over.